Welcome to the Pilates ecosystem. My name is Renee, and today our top tip is going to be on the topic about progressing and regressing in a group class. Talking progression and regression. Progression is when you build up to a additional layer of an exercise that gives people a little bit more challenge. A regression is something that you pull back on. So if you realized that a particular movement or a particular add-on of an exercise is too much for the whole class to handle, that is when you regress. Now, ideally, we only want someone to progress, right? We don't want someone to feel like, oh, I'm actually not good enough. Now I need to drop it down. You'd rather have someone gradually increase difficulty and progress building upon their skills rather than having them backtrack, right? We all know we want to go from a B to an A plus, right? Not a plus to a B minus. So think about it that way. One of the tools required from us is understanding what is the best base layer of an exercise to start with. For example, if you're like, okay, everyone, we're going to run 5K and someone hasn't even run like one full K. Obviously, you want to start with everyone running one full K first before you take it to 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, etc. Same goes with like a Pilates exercise. You want to be familiar with the hardest variation, but also the most foundational variation where you feel like your whole class can start off with, right? If you notice that your whole class has a certain ability, maybe they've all done Pilates before, they've all done the mat class, they've all done reformer at a basic level, then you're not going to start on a super basic level of the movement, right? You might start with a little bit of a challenge and gradually build this up. So this is when your skills as a Pilates instructor come into play. Again, this tip requires having a bit more awareness and a bit more of a skill set where you feel confident having that ability to read the room and think on your feet. So if you don't have this skill yet, do not be discouraged, because this is one of those things that does have a bit of a challenge in order to implement it. Like, it's challenging to implement. So we spoke about having a very clear base layer. Let's just take a long stretch, for example. Your hands are on the foot bar, your heels are on the shoulder blocks, you're in a plank position on the carriage, and you want people to slide the bed out and in. Now, if you're teaching like an open level class, one of the struggles that you might think of is, okay, some people can't even do a full plank. So what do? We start with being on your knees. Another thing that I find like a common mistake or challenge when you're doing like a long stretch is that your hips can't stay flat, right? Some people might pike their hips up. Some people might also find it hard to like push the foot bar away. So in your kneeling position, we highlight all of these things that you know are common errors or are challenging for some people to do. So you like mark these and you make sure people are aware of these errors as you go through that first layer. Then once you see, okay, maybe half the room can really manage this, then you say, okay, if you want to take it up a notch, lift your knees up, you're now in a full plank. And from that full plank, you start to push the carriage out and in, which is the same movement that you did in that kneeling variation, right? So that is layer 1, basic, being on your knees in that plank position, to that additional progression where you're in a full plank. Sometimes I see progressions and regressions thrown out there when it's not even necessary. Here's an example. You see that most of the people can't even do the basic layer that you've coached. Why are you giving the whole room another layer of difficulty when they can't even manage the first layer? Now, this is when your one-to-one coaching comes into play. If you notice there's like one or two people who can do that full variation, you don't need to necessarily announce it to the whole class. You might go up to that person and go, hey, I know that you're fully capable, so let's get those knees off and slide the bed out and in. That way you're coaching and connecting with people one-on-one and making them feel like, oh, okay, actually I can do this. And you're seeing the potential in people, which means you're very, very present with everyone in the room. And also that helps people who are focusing on doing their thing not to get distracted. We're like, oh, the instructor's telling me now I can do this. Okay, let me try that. But I can't even manage the first one. So it could be a little bit of a cognitive overload. And look, sometimes you're going to find, oh, okay, I started that movement on too difficult of a level. And that's fine. That's when you just regroup the class and peel back. If you don't make mistakes, you won't grow and you won't build that experience. So it's to make the wrong call on where you start, but just make sure you have a mental note when that happens. So for next time, you can start at a different variation. Now, when you cue layers, you really want to do it one step at a time. I see a lot of instructors go through the whole sequence of movements that they've planned. For example, let's take a lunge to arabesque or flying splits, depending on what you call it. So you're getting everyone to do a lunge and you're like, okay, so this next series is a lunge series. We are going to do, you demo your normal lunge, and then you go, then followed by scooters. Then you demo the scooter right away. Then from your scooter, you go, okay, and then we're going to do flying lunges. Then you demo the flying lunges. By then, people have already visually forgotten what the first exercise or variation of that exercise looks like. And then you've cued the second one, and then you've done the third one. And then you go, okay, everyone, let's now do it. By then, when they get to it, they're not going to remember any of these sequences or setups. So this is when you get people doing the first movement together, and then you talk on that. On this next one, you're going to press out in your lunge, stay in your lunge, hold it there. Heading into your scooters, only your back leg moves, back leg bends, back leg kicks out. Then you add one layer at a time. From your scooters, you're going to ask people to press out and hold. Hands on the foot bar. We're heading into arabesque or flying splits, flying lunges, whatever you call it. Then you highlight the most important thing, which is your back leg has to stay straight. If it bends, your hips are not going to lift. Make sure you're really being clear on what that next step is, rather than verbal diarrheaing and saying the whole sequence. And by then, people have already checked out. This works because when we work from a base layer, progressing, that means people are feeling successful. And when you progress, they know that they can backtrack if you go through the progression steps correctly. So don't cue a regression if you notice everyone's doing really well. You don't even have to give that option, because if you've done it right, they'll know where to take it back to. You don't need to give a progression if you notice most people in a group setting are not doing the thing well. This is when you provide one-to-one coaching. If you got a few more questions, anything you want to know about layering, cueing, hit me up in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Your comments is what helps keep the channel going, and it helps me help you. I'll see you next time.